Namaste, my dear children. Welcome back. I know your exams are just around the corner, and this chapter, Respiration in Plants, can feel a little complicated. But don't you worry one bit. Today we are going to make this chapter so simple that you'll be ready to score full marks. I promise.
So, let's kick things off with a simple question that you've probably wondered about. Do plants actually breathe? And the answer is a big yes. You see, just like us, plants are alive, and they are always busy, growing, making seeds, repairing themselves. And to do all that work, they need energy. Respiration is just their way of getting that energy out of the food they make.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with why plants need energy, then walk through the whole process, step by step. Just stick with me, and by the end of this chapter is going to be crystal clear.
All right, first things first. Why on earth do plants need all this energy? I mean, think about it. To push its roots through the soil, to absorb water, to grow taller towards the sun, to make flowers, every single little thing a plant does requires energy, and respiration is the key that unlocks this energy. So how does a cell actually use this energy? Well, it stores it in a very special molecule called ATP. Now, the easiest way to think of ATP is like the cell's own energy money. It's like having cash ready in your UPI or Paytm wallet. Whenever the cell needs to get some work done, it just pays with ATP. Simple. Let's dive into the first big process, glycolysis. The name itself gives you a clue, you know? Glyco means sugar, and lysis means to split. So it's the splitting of a sugar molecule. And here's the most important thing to remember for your exam. This is the first step for everyone. Every single living cell does it. It happens in the cytoplasm, and it doesn't even need oxygen. Now, I know glycolysis is a 10-step process, but don't get scared by that. We can just think of it in two simple parts. First, you have the investment phase. It's like starting a small business, right? You have to spend a little money to get started. So the cell spends 2 ATP. But then comes the best part, the payoff phase. The cell gets back 4 ATP and 2 other supercharged molecules called NADH. Okay, so let's look at the final score for glycolysis. We start with 1 glucose, and at the end, we have 2 molecules of something called pyruvic acid. So what's our total profit? Well, we made 4 ATP, but we spent 2. So that's a net gain of 2 ATP. Plus, we have those 2 energy-rich NADH molecules. That's it. Not so bad, right? All right, so the cell has made this pyruvic acid. But what's next? This is where the story gets really interesting. The path splits in 2. Like a fork in the road, and the direction the cell takes depends on one very crucial thing. And that one crucial thing is oxygen. Yep, the presence or absence of oxygen completely changes the game. If there's oxygen, the cell goes down one path. If there's no oxygen, it's forced to take a totally different route. This is a huge turning point. So let's compare these two paths. Without oxygen, you get anaerobic respiration, or fermentation. It's a quick and dirty process that stays in the cytoplasm and only gives a tiny profit of 2 ATP. But if oxygen is there, oh boy, the cell switches to aerobic respiration. This process moves into the mitochondria and makes a mind-blowing 38 ATP. Just look at that difference. This table is super important for your exams, my dear children, so make a note of it.
Let's just quickly talk about that anaerobic path. A great example is what yeast does. You've all seen it when your mom makes idli or dosa batter, or when a baker makes bread dough. They leave it to rise, right? That's just yeast doing fermentation. It releases carbon dioxide gas, and that's what makes everything all fluffy and soft.
But let's get to the main show, the one where the real energy is made, aerobic respiration. For this to happen, the pyruvic acid we made earlier has to travel from the cytoplasm into the mitochondrion, which is basically the cell's powerhouse, or, as we can call it, its Bijli Ghar. So once it's inside the mitochondrion, the pyruvic acid is converted into something called acetyl-CoA. Think of acetyl-CoA as the entry ticket to the main event, the Krebs Cycle. This cycle is like a big factory that just breaks the molecule down completely. And as it does that, it releases carbon dioxide, and more importantly, it loads up a whole bunch of these energy carrier molecules, NADH and FADH2.
So, now the cell has collected all these fully charged energy carriers, these NADH and FADH2 molecules. They're like little fully charged power banks. The big question is, how does a cell convert all that stored power into usable ATP currency?
This is where we go to the bank to cash everything in. The final stage is called the Electron Transport System, or ETS. Here, all our charged-up power banks, the NADH and FADH2, come and drop off their high-energy electrons. These electrons are then passed down a line of proteins, like a parcel in a relay race. And who's waiting at the very end of the line to catch that parcel? It's oxygen. This is why oxygen is so important. It's the final acceptor. It grabs the electrons and forms water.
Now here's the magic. As those electrons are passed down the chain, their energy is used to pump protons across a membrane, creating a huge concentration on one side. It's like building up water behind a dam, so much potential energy. Then, these protons rush back through a special channel, a tiny little machine called ATP synthase. And as they flow through, this machine literally spins and churns out massive amounts of ATP. It's absolutely brilliant.
So, after all of that, glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, the electron transport system, it's time for the final accounting. What's the grand total? How much energy did we get from just one single molecule of glucose? Are you ready?
The grand total is 38 ATP molecules. Wow, a whopping 38 ATPs from just one little glucose molecule. Now you can see why aerobic respiration is so much better than the 2 ATPs from fermentation. It's just incredibly efficient at getting energy.
All right, we are almost at the end. Let's finish up with 2 quick pro tips. These are very common questions in exams, and knowing them will definitely help you get those extra marks. First up is something called the Respiratory Quotient, or RQ. It sounds complicated, but it's really just a simple ratio. You take the amount of carbon dioxide that's released, and you divide it by the amount of oxygen that's used. And this little number is like a secret clue that tells us what kind of food the plant is burning for energy, whether it's carbohydrates, fats, or proteins.
And here are the numbers you need to know. For carbohydrates like glucose, the RQ is exactly 1. For fats, it's always a bit less than 1, around 0.7. And for proteins, it's about 0.9. Just remember this little table, okay? It's a favorite for multiple choice questions.
And now for our final pro tip. So far, we've only talked about respiration as a process of breaking things down for energy. But what if I told you that's only half the story? This amazing pathway also helps to build things up. So how does that work? Well, while the pathway is breaking down molecules, that's called catabolism, some of the molecules in the middle, like our friend acetyl-CoA, can actually be pulled out of the process. And they can be used as building blocks to create new things, like fatty acids. That's called anabolism. And because this pathway does both, it breaks down and it builds up, we give it a special name, an amphibolic pathway.
So let's end with that thought. Isn't it amazing that the very same pathway that breaks things down for energy also provides the building blocks to create new life? How can one pathway be so central to everything? It's really something to think about. I really hope this made the chapter much easier for you. All the very best for your exams. You are going to do great. Namaste.